Today I will teach you how to train chest for the most optimal gains in size and strength. We will do this by covering first the pec minor, the pec major, which are the two main chest muscles. Then we'll cover the anatomy, and at the end of the video I'll show you guys basically the best exercise I choose to do this with. As you see in the background currently, we're going to be doing this via push day. So we're going to let the push day run in the background while I explain these things to you guys, these different concepts and how to apply them to your own training. To show you how to get the best size gains and strength gains, I'll first have to talk about the anatomy of the chest. So we do this by covering the pec minor and the pec major, then discussing their functions and how to best train them or best activate them. So obviously everyone knows the flat bench, whatever else, flat bench, incline bench, but this we're going to talk about more in depth so you can really figure out how to actually fire up the chest and what actually is its purpose in the first place. If you can understand the purpose of the chest, then you can easily understand which exercises will hit it better than other ones. That's basically the logic of the video. Let's start with the pec minor. The pec minor is a small muscle that lies underneath the pec major, and its main function is the depression of the shoulder girdle. The shoulder girdle consists of the clavicle and the shoulder blade. Training the pec minor is beneficial for a lot of reasons, but mainly because it lies underneath the pec major. That means if you're able to develop the pec minor, it's going to act in a way to kind of push up the pec major, which is going to result in the pec major looking a lot bigger than it is, even though it didn't grow in size at all. Important muscle to train if you want to have a bigger chest. So what's actually the function of the pec minor? Depression just means downward, pushing it down. We all know muscles can only contract, which means we need an opposing muscle to contract so we can stretch the other muscle. So in this case, the pec minor is kind of the antagonist muscle in this scenario for the traps. So the traps, when the traps contract, you do this motion right here, right? That's how the traps contract. And in the opposing motion, this right here, this is how the pec minor contracts. That means if you know how to train the traps, you can do the opposite. That will allow you to train the pec minor. Luckily for us, this motion, the depression of it, the depression of the shoulder girdle is a vertical movement that's in line with gravity. Therefore, it means you just need to figure out how to depress the shoulder girdle in an upright position under weight, and we'll be able to train it effectively. Now let's move on to the pec major. The pec major is obviously the big meat part of the chest that everyone knows about. That's the part everyone wants to get bigger because it's the most prominent part of the chest. And we all know having a big chest gets you more sex, so why not get it bigger, right? When it comes to the chest though, it has three distinctive parts or heads that we need to focus on, right? We have the clavicle head, we have the sternal head, and we have the costal head. I put up an illustration so you can see it more clearly. But overall, if you think about the function of the chest, it is mainly the flexion, adduction, and internal rotation of the humerus. Humerus will be this part of the arm, all right? So any movement like this, basically, think about the elbow getting closer to the middle of your body. Any movement like this will activate your chest. So that is the main function of the chest muscle. Since the chest has three heads with fibers running in different directions, we can actually pick and choose which head we want to bias based on our exercise selection. So do this effectively, we have to understand what are the functions of each head and what is it actually supposed to accomplish. Once you understand that, you can easily structure your own workout in a way and do exercises that's going to be conforming to the function of the actual muscle. When it comes to the clavicular head, you can literally see how the fibers are running from here towards the humerus, right? Towards the humerus. So that's the motion. So any motion you think about it, right? Muscles need to either lengthen or contract. So how would you shorten this part of the muscle the most, right? It's going to be in a motion that's going to be towards this angle. So the angle has to be like this to shorten it the most. And by shortening it, you basically contract it. That's how it naturally works. So if you know the muscle runs from here all the way to here, right? This is the angle. This is how it runs, right? So to contract it, you have to run in this direction as well with the humerus, right? Focus on the humerus, not on your arms or your hands. Focus on the humerus where it actually attaches to, and it has to go from anywhere here where it stretches to over here. That's the only way, that's the angle of the fiber. So if you just follow the fibers, how the fibers run, and then use that to determine how to actually train it, right? So if you want to train the clavicular head of the chest, which is basically the upper part of the chest, right? You know it's like this. So this motion will be the way to do it. If you want to emphasize it a little bit more, you just do this as well, but on incline, so you can have gravity on the side as well. That way you can have two variables in your favor. So you have the gravity in your favor, and you have, so if you want to actually emphasize this, you can use, if you actually want to emphasize the upper chest training, or training the clavicle head, right? You can use the way it runs, you can add gravity to it to make it more effective. So you have this motion already, which hits the clavicle head, and you're gonna add it on incline, so you have gravity pointing towards this area so that you can go against it to have the most possible force to train the upper chest or clavicle head of the chest. When it comes to the sternal head, it's basically the big meaty part here. If you see also how the fibers run, I'll show the diagram again. If you see how the fibers run, they run basically straight across like this, right? Like this. So you can tell naturally it's going to be, if you want to lengthen this part, right, it will be to push as far as possible away and then get the elbows towards the middle of your body. If you do it right now, just do it right now if you want to. Get the elbows to the middle of your body, right? As you push, and you realize that the closer it gets to the middle of your body, the more tense the muscle gets. That's basically the goal. So you want to make sure that when you're training it, it's not about staying here and staying in the trailer. That's why just like a bench press alone isn't really the ideal way to train chest, because you are fixed in this position and you can just go like this. If you do have your hand on your chest right now and do keep pressing without going towards the middle, without converging your arms, just press out here like this, and tell me how your chest is activating. Right, it's almost disengaged. So for the head, for the pecs to actually work, it is important to go towards the middle of your body. The middle movement, like the converging towards the middle, is how the chest actually gets activated. By converging, you actually contract from the humerus here to the sternal head. You actually contract it the most towards this. So yes, does it work a little bit in this range? A little bit. If you want to optimally hit the sternal part of the chest, you want to definitely converge towards the middle. Make your elbows. Don't follow your hands. Follow your elbows. Make sure your elbows go towards the middle of your body. That way you actually activate the chest. So a lot of times you see guys doing like chest flies, right, or like cable flies, and they use things and they focus on getting their hands to touch. But if you do it right now, you see that your chest actually isn't engaged. As you do this, and you get your elbows closer together though, you see that your chest actually gets engaged. So that's your goal. Always when you're training chest, always think about your elbow placement, not your hand placement. Your hand can be anywhere. As long as your elbows are getting tighter together, your chest will be engaged. When you're training chest, you should be primarily focused on how to get your elbows to touch almost. That's how you should think about it. Like, how can you get your elbows closer together? Because as long as they're getting closer together, your chest will get activated. As if it's out here, you can tell. Just do it right now to yourself. You're not as engaged as you could be than if you do something like this, right? So the converging makes it actually engage the chest. So this is actually for all heads. So this is actually a general chest exercise rule that make sure they converge. Next head is the coastal head. Usually people cover the sternal head and the coastal head together as the sternal coastal head, but it's important that to make a distinction here. Because if you look at the coastal head, the fibers actually run downwards like this, right? If you look at the image I put up there, the fibers actually run downwards, which means that it is trained slightly differently in comparison to the sternal head. For the coastal head, you have to think about it like this. I always say follow the fibers. No matter the muscle group, the rule is the same. Just follow the fibers. As we saw earlier, the fibers of the upper chest, right, run from here to here. That's the motion. The fibers from this one runs from the humerus here straight across. Fibers for the coastal head run from here downwards. This is how you lengthen it, but to shorten it, to contract the muscle, you have to go a little bit downwards. So it's not the same as going like this, right? This is how we do the sternal head. The most bias is this, but mind again, this is biasing. So even though you might do this, like the downward motion, you're still gonna hit some sternal head, obviously. But the goal of this video is more to trigger how to bias certain portions of this chest. So as you can see with the fibers of the coastal head, if you go downwards more, right, that's how you actually engage the lower part of the chest, because the fibers are running like this, right? So this motion is how to actually contract the lower part of the chest the most. So when you're doing exercise, trying to focus on that means when you're trying to do exercise next time, trying to grow your lower chest, right? Any exercise you do that's going to be in this motion, like kind of slightly downwards, only slightly downwards though, right? If your goal is to target your lower chest, the coastal head of the chest, it's important to have a downward motion. Like obviously now we stand up, right? So it's downward. Now that you guys know the motions of each of these muscles and how to hit them the most or bias them the most, we're now going to talk about the exercises to do that's going to hit each of these muscles the best. We're going to keep the principles we talked about earlier in mind while we pick these exercises, so we can see that it makes sense to pick these over other ones. For the pec minor we talked about earlier, the main function was the depression of the shoulder girdle. When I said it was the antagonist muscle to the upper traps. Since we know how to train traps, which is just, doing shrugs, we will do the opposite of that motion, and that's going to be able to train the pec minor the most. What's the opposite of that? It's going to be something called reverse shrugs, and I learned this little exercise from the GOAT, Mountain Dog, rest in peace, John Meadows. I watched this video like years ago while he was still alive, and that was basically the best. And actually, I don't really know many other exercises for the pec minor. So if you want to train the pec minor, this doesn't take much work, but it takes a little bit of getting used to, because you want to basically, it takes a little bit of getting used to, because you're not going to be used to this exercise or this motion basically. But the most important part of this is that you want to keep your arms as stiff as possible. So I'll show you this clip now so you can see how he does it and how I do it. And then you can basically do the same thing, right? And this is going to it's going to feel weird at first, but it's going to hit your pec minor in the most optimal way possible. And I don't think there's any exercise you can really pick that's going to even be a close second. So do this, only this, for the pec minor, only this exercise, and that should be more than enough for you guys to grow the pec minor. Now for the major. For the major, we're going to cover the 3 different heads. For the clavicular head, this portion, the upper chest, we're going to use the principle from earlier to create the perfect exercise for this. So what do we say? We want the motion that's going to be like this, and this way, like more upwards. And it's going to, same thing with the other muscles, we're going to want to have the elbows get closer to the middle, right? So upwards and elbow closer to the middle. That's the best way to train this part. So how do we do that? There's three exercises I will pick for anyone that wants to do this. The first one will be, the first one that I would pick will be incline high-low raises. I'll do this video as well, so I'll show you guys a clip now. And these ones will hit it most, because basically it is the clavicle head, or the clavicle head of the chest is actually hit the most if you start with it with your arms behind your body, because that's when it's the most stretched. So when you have your arms behind your body and then you lift them up towards the middle and upwards, it's actually hit the most. The problem is that when you're doing presses, you can't really get your arms behind your body. It's not possible, right? So the cable low high fly, it's cable low high, not high low. The cable low high fly allows you to actually get your arms behind your body for the most optimal stretch, and then lift it up to basically target it the most. Second exercise I'll do for the clavicle head will be an incline dumbbell press. The reason I say this is because if you think about it with the elbow principle I was trying to take us earlier, right? Doing like an incline bench press, even though I do this video, I like doing incline bench presses because I like going heavy. But if it's just about training the chest the most optimal way, you want to have exercise where it's going to be converging, where it allows you to get your elbows towards the middle. And if you're doing a bench press, right, your arms are locked in this place, so there's no really getting your elbows into the middle. You get what I'm saying? So that's why with the dumbbells, you're able to converge at the top at least, or towards the top, and then make your elbows closer to the middle. And as you do that, you get your pecs more engaged. So first was the cable low high fly. Second, and really it's the first one, is really an incline low high raise over a fly. So like really just, you're trying to just raise your arms towards the middle and the top, like the top and middle part, right? You're not really trying to, like, it's not really a fly motion, it's more like a raise motion. With the second one, incline dumbbell press, we want to use the dumbbells because it allows us to actually converge. And the conversion is what makes us allow the elbows to get closer. And as elbows get closer, the chest gets more engaged. That's the whole point of this video. That's the whole point of this principle. That's about, even though I did the incline bench press in this video, the optimal way to actually train this is with dumbbells. But I did a bench press because I like going heavier on my lifts, so that's why I picked the bench press. But if you want to basically engage the chest the most, you will not do an incline bench press. You actually do an exercise with dumbbells where you can converge. Any exercise you do that where you can converge the elbows towards the middle, it's going to be more effective at hitting the chest than just a plain straight barbell exercise. And lastly, for the clavicle head, any incline converging press. So it could be a press that's going to converge on incline, and it's going to allow you to do the same thing that would be, it's going to allow you to do something similar with like, it's basically going to allow you to mimic the dumbbell movement, but it's going to be in a more stable environment, which is going to make it a little bit of a better exercise than dumbbell incline press. Right, so the same principles again, want it to be converging. As long as it's converging, you make sure to focus on your elbows getting closer to the middle, not your arms or your hands alone. When I say conversion, always remember, we want to converge our elbows don't worry about where your arms are, where your hands are. We want to worry about where our elbow placement is. So when you do these exercises, make sure to focus on getting your elbows towards the middle of your body, not just your hands. That was it for the clavicular head. Now for the sternal head. Same principle again, converging but on a more straight path like this. So like this or like this over the incline. And then now we can do anything basically flat in a flat plane and still hit the sternal head. Remember we said with the sternal head, it's the same motion, but the fibers are running now straight across, right? So we don't need to worry about now inclining or declining or pressing down or upward, because since the fibers run across, we only worry about pressing in a straight motion. Everything I said earlier still applies. So the more conversion you can get, the more you can get the elbows towards the middle, better it's going to be for your overall chest. In this case, if your gym has a converging chest press machine, that's probably one of the best exercises you can do for bigger chest, because it allows you to be able to press and converge your elbows in a fixed manner. Being that it is more fixed because it's a machine, it allows you to focus on your chest alone without having to focus on stabilizing the muscles. That would be my number one choice. Second exercise I will pick for you guys for the sternal head would be a pec deck. Same thing I said earlier with the pec deck. You want to focus on getting your elbows in and not just your hands. So you can do this like this and you're not going to engage your chest. You can do this fly like this and you're not going to engage it. If you do it like this, you're not going to engage your chest as much as you could be doing it. So when you do it, think about just keeping your arms as straight as possible. Because if your arms are straight, you naturally are forcing your elbows tighter in. So instead of thinking about getting your hands to touch, try to get your elbows to touch, right? There's also another one you can do, which is called a butterfly, where the elbows are going to be like this, and all the worry about is doing this. And that's going to actually have the same effect, right? It's going to make your elbows get closer together, meaning your chest is going to be activated the most. That's how it works simply. So then the last one obviously going to be a dumbbell flat press. Dumbbell again because it allows you to converge the muscles together, right? And it's going to be better than even though it's going to be less stable than the bench, it's going to allow you to converge them more. It's going to allow you to engage the actual muscle you want to train more. That's the point of it. That's the whole point of training the chest, right? You want to be able to engage it as much as possible from a stretch point to a contracted point. That's the principle here. So the last head is the coaster head. As we said earlier, the coaster head has fibers that are running like this downwards, right? So anything we're doing should be in this plane from here towards here, with the same principle of getting the elbows towards the middle. A lot of times with the coaster head, right, with the lower chest, people train it by doing a decline bench press. And the problem with that is that, for one, the incline usually is too steep, and two, it's a barbell bench press, so your hands going to be fixed. The better option would be to use a slight decline bench press. To do this, you just put a plate or two under your bench, so it can give you a little bit of a decline. And you're going to push towards, like, against gravity. Like, you're basically going to push straight up. So even though you're on decline, right, which means now that your lower chest is going to be the one facing the ceiling. Now you just push straight up and up and in, right? You can push straight up and in to engage the pec the most. That's basically the goal. So what you do is you push straight up and in to engage the pec the most and then decline. That way you're going to train. That way you're going to train the coaster head the most optimally. What you also can do is do dips. In this case with dips, you won't have the dip bars, the ones that aren't straight but are like this, like the V form. So with the V form, you can be a little bit closer, which will give you basically a more tighter elbow placement. So as this tighter means when you push up, you're naturally gonna be tighter like this, which will make the pec more engaged. So when you have the option of a dip bar, it's going to be not straight but like a little bit like a V. Go to the part where it's a little bit narrower, and in that part you want to do dips more there, because it's going to allow you to, in the contracted position, have the elbows as close as possible, and that way you're going to engage the chest most optimally. That's basically the way to train the chest most optimally. The spark notes are basically make sure that you converge your elbows, don't worry about where your hands are, worry about where your elbows are, and follow the fibers. Those are the 3 points you need to remember. If you know where the fibers are running, you know which motion is needed to train that head most optimally. And this follow the fiber rule is applicable to all muscle groups. So in this case, we just talk about the chest. In another video later on, we will talk about another muscle group, and then I'll tell you guys the same thing again. Follow the fibers. The fibers are your friend, right? Fibers are your friend. Follow them. With these 3 rules, you should be able to start structuring your chest stays a little bit better and more effectively, to allow you to actually grow your chest and start having more sex. that's it for the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, you know. And until next time, see you guys.